What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are discussing both cutting and bulking and how to know whether you should do one over the other. You know, bulking is such a weird thing, right? Because I feel like sometimes people have this like misconception with bulking that like you just eat so much food all the time and you gain a lot of weight really quickly. And in my experience as a coach, a lot of times, and I see this more so with women, they have a negative connotation with bulking. And I would love to break that stigma. I know I'm just one small person in the fitness and health industry, but I really want to talk about number one, the bulking side of things and why it is so important, especially for females who are looking for total body recomposition. A lot of times when I get a new client, one of the first things they want to do is they give me this two-step goal. I hear this and I've heard this over and over for years. I want to build muscle and lose fat. And of course, you know, as with everything, there's an exception to the rule. There's some gray area. And really, like if you're a beginner, like a very, very fresh newbie beginner who has never compound lifted before and never eaten a high protein diet, and you know, you're doing all these things, it is likely that you are going to put on some muscle mass and you're going to see some body composition changes at the same time in regards to fat loss. Is it true, like happening at the exact same time? Scientifically speaking, not really, but people just like to refer to this portion of time as like newbie gains. In the beginning, a lot of times clients will ask me if they should bulk or cut. And there's a couple of things that you should consider when you're deciding whether or not you want to eat in a caloric surplus, which obviously most people consider bulking, or eat in a caloric deficit, which most people consider cutting. The other option, of course, is to eat at maintenance, which I personally enjoy the most. I think even though the results are a lot slower and you don't have a ton to track on a weekly basis, it's something that you don't really have to think much about. In my opinion, I feel like it's something you can be a lot more lax with. You don't really have to worry about it on either end of the spectrum. And it's a lot of times if someone isn't really sure or they don't really feel comfortable mentally bulking, which we'll talk about in a second, I like to just start them off at maintenance regardless. So when it comes to bulking, the way that I typically like to handle new clients who want to build muscle, even if they have set in their goals that they also want to lose fat, if they are a smaller human, they don't have a lot of body fat to lose. And so, for example, even though not all body caliper tests are 100% accurate, I would say like anywhere from 20 to 27% body fat, if you're in that range and you don't have a significant amount of weight to lose, but you have that goal of building muscle and losing fat, personally, I would recommend going up first. And here's why. Number one, ultimately, when it comes to building muscle mass, this is something that takes a lot of time. Number two, when you build more muscle mass and your body begins to grow new muscle tissue, your basal metabolic rate, which is the amount that your body just burns to exist, will also increase. This is why you see a lot of athletes who are like super muscular. They're able to eat so much. They're able to cut on a higher amount of food. And this is literally because of the amount of muscle mass that they have. So that's always one positive that I like to give to people if they're indecisive, especially for people who don't currently have a lot of body mass in terms of like muscle. So the reason this is important is because if you are somebody who is, you know, let's say like 5'4", 125 pounds, but you really don't have a lot of muscle mass and you're aiming for body recomposition, you definitely might be better off doing a slow bulk upwards. And we can kind of talk about what that might look like for you instead of constantly trying to diet and constantly trying to lose weight, thinking that you're going to get like that, you know, cut, defined look that a lot of people are after. Because the honest truth is, if you don't have a base of muscle mass already, if you lose body fat, you're not really gonna look much different. And this is something that I ask my clients, especially beginners, right off the bat. If they're chasing a number on the scale, right? Let's say, you know, they wanna lose 10 pounds or something. I always ask them, if you were to wake up tomorrow and that number on the scale said what your goal number was, but you looked exactly the same, would you be happy? And if you're sitting here asking yourself the same question and the answer is no, then you really may want to just say F the scale, forget dieting, and really put your efforts into bulking. And there are so many good payoffs that come from that, at least in my opinion. Number one, you're going to focus on strength gain. And if you're somebody who struggles a little bit with the scale in general, or has a restrictive past, or maybe you've just been dieting for a really long time, this can be a great opportunity for you to forget that side of things and start to focus on your lifts. So if you are somebody who, maybe wants to increase their back squat, or you have some physical strength goals, this would be a great opportunity to bulk. With that being said, if you are talking about a significant muscle mass and true natural athletes, obviously with no help of performance enhancing drugs, you are going to be looking at a long-term process of bulking for periods of time, cutting back down to maintenance if you so want to, cutting a little bit of fat that you may have gained in the bulk, going back up to maintenance, going back up into a surplus, and so on and so forth with the cycle until you have reached a body composition that feels comfortable to you. And this is going to look different for everybody. However, this is not going to happen in 4 to 8 weeks. If you are seeing these like total body transformation, gain 10 pounds of muscle in 2 months, it is 100% bullshit. You cannot do that. So, the same properties apply to fat loss that I'm always preaching about, they also apply for bulking. So just keep that in mind. And the sad part about this is that it's not sexy. Nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to hear that to put on like 20 pounds of muscle mass, which, to give you a reference point, I posted this picture on Instagram last week, and it's about a 20-pound difference, but it's 5.5, near 6 years of time. Okay. So when you're comparing yourself, if you are somebody that does that, to, an ideal body composition that you are after, if it is somebody that is truly like 15 to 20 pounds heavier than you, if you're really trying to bulk, you're going to need to give yourself some time, and you have to accept it. There's no way around it. You cannot just eat in a surplus for 8 weeks and think you're going to get awesome calf delts and biceps and all this stuff, and then you're just going to be like ripped and jacked. Unfortunately, if that is not the case. If it were the case, nobody would ever struggle with bulking and cutting or deciding what to do, but it's not. I know it sucks to hear that, but it is true, and you have to accept it. So time, longevity, and doing it in a slow, and again, this is just my opinion as a coach, a slow and sustainable approach usually is the best, especially for people who are not used to bulking. So what that might look like is adjusting protein, carbs, and fats if you're somebody that tracks macros over that extended period of time, maybe adding in 100 calories to 200 calories every 2 to 4 weeks, again, give or take. Every person's circumstance is going to be different, right? But I just find that a lot of people adapt better to that, and they don't have as much unnecessary fat gain as if you were to go from a severe deficit all the way to a severe surplus in a short period of time. Typically, when you see that, what I like to refer to as rebounding, especially off of a cut, you do tend to see a lot of fat gain because you're going from just such a severe deficit to a surplus in a short period of time, and I don't recommend doing that. If you are somebody who is really looking to increase strength, build your overall body muscle mass, you are going to have to accept the fact that at least for some period of time, you need to eat more. You cannot starve yourself into a more muscular body. It is not possible. You will be miserable, you will be frustrated, and you'll just be in a never-ending cycle of constantly eating in a deficit. On the other side of things, however, if you are somebody who is not sure whether or not you need to cut first or bulk first, I kind of want to refer back to the initial point that I made about being between 20 to 27% body fat. Again, this is just a rough estimation. But if you are somebody who has like 15 to 35 pounds plus of body fat to lose, I would definitely recommend starting with eating at maintenance, obviously to establish your maintenance period, and then slowly, in the same way that you would go upwards into a bulk, you're going to do that same thing with a cut. So cutting protein, carbs, and fats, I like to do them interchangeably. So like one adjustment would be protein, the other would be carbs and fats, so on and so forth, over an extended period of time. Same concept applies for going into a deficit, coming back up to maintenance, going into a deficit, coming back up to maintenance. It is not going to be sustainable for you to just consistently deficit and deficit and deficit yourself into the ground, because you're going to end up eating nothing and then be miserable and likely just give up. So it's important to have these cycles, and it's important to remember that it is a completely long-term decision. Either way, whether you are starting to bulk first or starting to cut first, you have to commit to be able to know that you're going to do either for at minimum 8 weeks. With all that being said, if you are going into your cut after you've already been in a deficit, or you're trying to change your body composition after already being in a deficit for an extended period of time, and you do have a significant amount of weight to lose, you may need to do a reverse diet, which is essentially just the same thing as small incremental increases over time, but you're not necessarily going upwards into that bulk, right? You're just kind of adapting your maintenance to be a little bit higher so that you can start that process over again. So with all that being said, if you are going into your cut after you've already been in a deficit, or you're trying to change your body composition after already being in a deficit for an extended period of time, and you do have a significant amount of weight to lose, you may need to do a reverse diet, which is essentially just the same thing as small incremental increases over time, but you're not necessarily going upwards into that bulk, right? You're just kind of adapting your maintenance to be a little bit higher so that you can start that process over again. The biggest thing is that you just need to remember it is simply not realistic to be in a quote unquote bulk forever and get those body composition results that you want, especially if you are, what is the term people always use that I feel is relevant? Toned, that's the word. I couldn't think of the word, toned. If you are looking for a toned look, you are not going to get there by simply eating in a surplus forever, because obviously you're going to end up putting on some body fat and so on and so forth. So both of these things are really important, honestly. Cutting, bulking, maintenance, they all have their designated reasons, you know, and it's important to go through all of them. So whether or not you choose to bulk or cut first, or start in maintenance, which is kind of honestly what I recommend, especially for beginners, just to know your maintenance, just know that you'll eventually go through a cycle of one or the other at some point if you are looking for total body composition change. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that answers your questions. Let me know if you have any other questions about this, or if you're interested in signing up for Black Iron Nutrition Coaching. The link is in the description. Unfortunately, I do have a wait list right now, but eventually I'm assuming it will be opening up. So that's all I have for you in today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and click subscribe so you never miss Monday or Thursday with Manders. And that is a wrap for this video. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you in my next one.